That'd take a while. This is how you come down. I made it back, all alive, barely. Man, I was sick, so sick for like 3/4 of this trip. And I got my little sidekick here. Puppy, come here, come here, come here. Yeah, just got back late last night, blew up the motor of my truck basically, 9 hours away from traveling home. Was a bit of a cluster, but the mechanic that I found thankfully had a spare truck I could use to get the trailer and all the shit home. What a pain in the butt. But anyway, got home. Lots to get caught up on. Holy cow, I got a lot to get caught up on. But I guess I'm going to show you my little sidekick here. She's not cute or anything. There's a whole pile of probably hundreds of new emails that come in from people. Probably the same amount of people are frustrated with me because I'm not doing what they want me to do when they want me to do it, which is unfortunate. There's never, ever, ever a long list of people who are frustrated with me because they think that I should be doing something to appease them. Well, I can't. It's not possible. So all I can do is what I can do as it comes. Now she's discovering all of the fun, chewable things. I better pick her up and show her to you guys, right? Come here, you little fluff ball. So here she is. This is little Ruby. She's not cute or anything, are you? There she is, 11 weeks old. And she's a very independent dog. All these dogs were born in the middle of nowhere on a ranch, and the mom was a guard dog, and they didn't live with the family, the human family at all. So anytime there's a scary noise, all the animals, the puppies, would just disappear and find a snug little tight place to be safe. So anyway, I had a scare this morning in the shop here. Woke up, lied her to sleep in the house last night, obviously, till I get her little kennel made. And I put her in the shop with a big fresh elk bone I pulled out of the freezer for her, and she went crazy on it. So she was pretty occupied, and I left with the doors shut. And then I came back in about an hour later to dead silence and the bone on the floor, and I'm like, oh no, just like the goat, when the goat just about died. And I'm thinking, I'm calling her name out, basically yelling it out, and I can't see her, and it's dead silence. I'm like, holy shit, there's no way she can get out of the shop. And I'm like, I killed her in the first day. Oh my God. I'll tell you, I was like, I was shaking. Because I knew she was in here somewhere. And must have got wedged in something. One of those fluke 1 in a million episodes, and she's strangled out somewhere. And I'm thinking I've got seconds to find her and revive her. Whatever's going on. Like I'm almost borderline panicking. And I ran up on the top deck here into the unfinished spare room, and she's not in there. Excuse me. And hey! Anyway, she all of a sudden comes out groggy, was walking out from between the freezer and the wall, which is a gap about that big, and she crawled into that tight little hole by herself, which she's accustomed to growing up. And then there she was. Thank God. That was a crazy feeling, thinking I just killed this little fluff ball in the first 12 hours home. What else? Dave Plottis is texting me saying his inbox is getting jammed up with people emailing him wondering what the hell happened to me if I'm still alive. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the concern. Appreciate Dave. And I'm alive. And I've got too much to share. So many new experiences happened while I was away. And I saw a lot of new country. And had a lot of success. And captured a lot of wildlife on video because I was keeping the camera in my pocket. What else? Have an email from Gary McKinnon. You can Google his name up. He's had quite the life experiences, as I believe he hacked into the US military website or something years ago and became international celebrity overnight as they tried to extradite him. Anyway, Gary's a subscriber or follower of this channel, and he went out of his way to clean up some audio of 100% voices from these beings being recorded on Vancouver Island during the taping of one of those shows called Alone or something. So I got that to share pretty quick. And also, coincidentally, when I basically said, somebody who knows better get a hold of me now when it comes to Edgar. And while that video was loading, which would take, those short videos I managed to make while I was away, took an average of 2 days plus to load onto YouTube. Because at nighttime I had very limited Wi-Fi, and then throughout the day I'd have 1 bar or something, sometimes none where I was. So after I let that video out, and it hadn't even loaded yet, Edgar gets a hold of me. And he's been in and out of the hospital and having some difficult times in the UK. He's definitely a firecracker and pissed at what's going on globally. And we had a lot to talk about there. I got a lot more to share in that department too. I got a lot more to share across the board. That's got to get caught up. So anyway, while she sniffs out her new hangout, chews on all the antlers that are available instead of that juicy bone down there, I'm gonna see what I got in the inbox here and make sure I don't shut this video down without making somebody heard. There's a big lineup of a lot of information. Let's hear this. This is titled Sasquatch. Hi Steve, I grew up in a small town in northwestern Pennsylvania. Our house is situated between two large hills that were called a hollow. Behind the house was a garage and creek flowed from the waterfalls further back in the hollow past the garage and our house, and eventually emptied into the Shenango River. It's either Shenango or Shenango River. Hi, what are you chewing on? Oh, all right. A road separated our property. The part of the property on the other side of the road went about 400 yards down to old railroad tracks, and on the other side of that was an old cottage that led to a massive cornfield and then the river. The UFO was the first thing that showed up in the summer of the early 70s. All the kids in the neighborhood ate, played baseball on our property across the road until dark, and then we played kick the can. About an hour into the night, a 70-yard wide disc with multicolored lights appeared from nowhere and landed in the cornfield. It didn't make any noise. Just as I was about to yell, "Look," everybody was running towards the road and then went home. No one ever talked about it again. Odd, isn't it? A few days after the UFO, I was taking the trash to the burn barrel behind the garage. The barrel was beside the creek, about 4 feet up off the water. I heard something stirring in the water, but couldn't see a thing. No moon and dark as can be. I shone my light towards the water as I stood by the burn barrel, but I couldn't see anything or the trees on the other side of the creek. I raised the light until I was looking at a face, and then seen the massive body. I was looking up at something that I just couldn't wrap my head around. It had the fur of a bear, but the face of a man, and stood like a man. It was just looking at me, and I turned and ran as fast as I could to the house. I burst in crying and shouting to my dad. It looked like a man, but the fur of a bear. He seen pure terror in my eyes and tried to calm me down. He grabbed the guns and headed back out of the garage. We were there for about 30 minutes and nothing. My dad didn't know what to think. That weekend, 4 of the neighborhood kids wanted to camp out back by the waterfalls, and my brother and I, along with 2 other friends, declined the invite because of what I had seen. So we got laughed at, and they went to our campsite. It hadn't been too long after dark before the 4 kids came running down the hill in pure terror. They said they had seen it, and it was circling the camp before giving a god-awful yell. That was the last time we ever slept back there again. The following week, we set up camp across the road, and at midnight, we heard a yell like we had never heard before. So we walked towards the railroad tracks, and there, standing between the rails, was a giant whatever, standing as still as could be. My brother picked up a stone and threw it at it, and we heard a thud, and a sound came from it. Uh-oh. Don't be hitting that camera. Bobby, come here. Don't wipe out that camera. We ran back up to our camp and tried to rationalize it. After that night, none of us ever camped out again, nor did we talk about it. We didn't hang out, and the life was literally sucked out of our neighborhood. It wasn't until my dad took us to watch The Legend of Boggy Creek that I learned what we had seen. We have never seen another UFO or Bigfoot again. Thank God. Another crazy frickin' experience shared by many, and they don't want to talk about it again. Unfortunate, right? Isn't that bizarre how we've been programmed? I don't get it. But the thoughts come to my mind reading that one go straight to where I usually go, which is, you dirty, filthy bastards not telling us the truth. Right now, these children and more, and other human adults have to go through life getting terrorized, PTSD, their life changed, their chances of enjoying this world, the natural world, stripped from them, all because we are not informed of that truth. and many more. And that is very, very wrong. But anyway, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. I absolutely appreciate you sending that in. And if it could bring any help, any of those individuals, if you still know of them and have their email contact, maybe just send this video to them so they can hear it, so they know that they're not alone and they're not crazy, and it's okay to talk about it now. All right? Goofy puppy, that little puppy does not go anywhere. I can't walk anywhere without her stuck to my ankles now. I guess that's probably a good thing. I don't have to worry about her. Hey, quit eating that. Hey. All right. All right. Let's get somebody else heard. Well, I'm here. This is titled Letter to Steve, Encounters with the Big Fellas. Dear Steve, before I share my experience with you, I'd like to thank you for what you do. Your raw style and authenticity is something that needs to be heard more and more these days. I hope to continue to hear you share knowledge and experiences from around the world. Thank you for the kind words, and I will not stop. As long as people like you keep sharing, being brave and honest. I only remembered my first experience with one of the big guys as an adult, though my first actual experience happened as a young boy in bed at night drifting off to sleep. Except I didn't sleep. I became aware that I was looking down at myself. As my head turned to move through the curtains, my consciousness moved down to the bottom of the garden. Standing next to the gate leading to the path was an immense figure with very broad shoulders. He was actually wearing clothing in the form of a long trench coat and a hat like the classic detective. The face was only illuminated as it lit a cigar and stared up at my room. The features of the face were a mix of man and gorilla. There was a fierce intelligence and power in his eyes. These memories and the emotions tied to them returned to me more and more as I gained experience. Though even as a kid, I never even mentioned the event, thinking people would simply tell me I was dreaming. I now know that I was in the state between consciousness and unconsciousness where things can get weird. Anyway, on to the proper meat of the story. Before I ever experienced the forest giant, as an adult, I saw a very unique UAP/UFO. I've tried hard to find any documentation, story, or sketch that looks like what I saw, but I ain't found squat. Perhaps one of your listeners has, by some chance, experienced something similar. The craft in question was about a mere 6 feet from me when I turned my head and noticed it. The thing looked like a sci-fi dragonfly, maybe 6 to 8 inches long, except there were only one set of wings. There were carvings and details in the sections of the body through my glance, though my glance was very brief. The wings never moved and looked solidly attached to the body, which looked chrome and reflective. Each wing looked like it had 2 rows of 4 glowing blue squares lined in a grid on each surface. They made no sound whatsoever when I locked my eyes on it. The thing turned on the spot 180 and moved away at instant speed. Without thinking, I lunged up from the log I was sitting on and sprinted the 3 steps between my seat and the fire smoke column. This is an important detail, I feel. We were partying on a beach, specifically in a cove, so there was no wind whatsoever. The smoke column from the fire rose perfectly slowly and steadily as a thick pillar of smoke. Another detail, think of seeing a helicopter fly through a smoke column in a war movie you've seen. The way the smoke reacts to the chopper flying is iconic and inescapable, right? The rolling coils? Well, I can tell you that this craft cut through the smoke. When this craft cut through the smoke, there was no effect whatsoever, like a ghost knife cutting through ghost butter. My eyes were locked on the thing as it disappeared, and I darted around the fire within moments of losing line of sight. Looking up and all around at the walls of the cove, there was no sign of the blue light. There was never any sound from it at all. Turning immediately back to the guy I was talking with, I had the sense to keep my mouth shut and asked what he saw. He told me roughly what I had seen, enough that I knew I wasn't hallucinating and wasn't losing my grip on reality. The message in my head when I saw it was loud and clear, being watched and listened to. Question is surveilled by who and why? The lad I was chatting to before was funny enough, telling me how he was in uni to become a journalist to infiltrate the Illuminati. Oh, that sounds good. I told him that if I ever uncovered any info that would actually bring them down, he probably wouldn't live to expose it. advised that he spent his life trying to help those in need instead of targeting those in power. I often wonder if my advice was right. Still though, every empire on this earth has fallen. If anyone has seen any anti-gravity dragonfly hovering close to conversations relating to the downfall of the deep state, please speak up. Now on to my 2 experiences with multiple forest giants. The first is driving home late one night right in 2020, less than a mile from my fragile domicile. Domicile? Rounding the last of a series of uphill corkscrew-style West Country back road bends to my coastal town when I lived on the outskirts, my car had a serious issue, making an unholy squealing like a wounded and dying wild boar. I think these noises brought them in. The whole encounter probably lasted about 5 or 6 seconds. The first thing I saw was a leg disappearing into the hedge on the left, about 30 to 40 feet ahead of my car, after exiting the corner. As I rounded the left-hand corner, my mind said, that ain't no deer. For clarification, at this point, I lived in the southwest of the UK and always have done. My entire life, up till that point in time, anything big I saw going into a hedge was a deer, a badger, a fox, or a cat. This leg was the orange of an orangutan with hair similar length, and the scale of the limb blew my mind. The sole of the foot at the end of the insane leg was gray, and it disappeared at a very high angle of lift almost instantly. Before I had ever had a chance to say, what the F was that? My attention was forcefully locked down the road on the right. This eye was huge. It looked to be about 7 foot off the deck, though it was a considerable distance from me. It was strange because I knew absolutely that it was deciding what to do based on what I did. There was such power in this one-eyed stare that I knew I had no choice but to drive steadily past where the leg had disappeared on the left. I drove onwards with my eyes locked on this one eye staring at me. Looking left wasn't a thought that I could allow to manifest. There was no taking my eyes off what I was seeing in front of me. Slowing down was not an option in my mind. I just had to drive. Less than 1 second after I passed the spot where the enormous leg went into the hedge, the one eye blinked out and disappeared. I can honestly tell you I didn't even look right. I'm not sure I could have handled things if I did see something more. I drove the last mile at the same pace as I knew these big boys could easily be waiting for me in the dark at home if they wished to. The screech must have really enticed a younger one, I think. The noise sounded so much like a dying pig that I think it activated a hunting instinct. The perception and cognitive abilities of primates has been proven to be insanely fast and accurate. I think the young one on the left wanted to eat my car until it saw what it was and swiftly disappeared. I reckon the older one on the right was waiting to make sure I didn't stop and investigate the one on the left. God only knows what would have happened if I'd have been dumb enough to stop. I know they mostly don't really want hassle, but that's why they hide and move mostly at night. Second experience happened about 30 odd miles from my hometown now, in the village next to the village where I grew up. Spring of 2021, and after my first real experience, I'm researching more. I was camping in a small section of woodland next to my best mate's family farm with my best bud, just the 2 of us. Now we need to clarify something else. We ingested at sunset some magic mushrooms. My friend didn't fast as advised and grew increasingly unwell after an hour or so, leading to him emptying his stomach and going to his tent to chill. I also want to add that at this point that I can handle my shit and I know exactly what is pretty color strip and what is actually reality. I regularly handle fire and sharp objects, camping under the influence of hallucinogenics, sometimes several different ones at the same time. Because I follow safety protocols, including preparing my fasting before the trip, I never lose control and always have a great time. I've never failed to distinguish between reality and an altered perception, as I rock climb on acid and never failed to live. It is not something I would recommend, however, excuse me, I know I'm not alone in this. I also want to say I passed my driver's test on the first try, both theory test and practical exam. Excuse me. Want you to know that I'm really not nuts. I just enjoy living life to the fullest and making incredible, if not magical, memories. This I have done and then some. XD. I expected this night to be just like any other, though my friend's bad state was unfortunate. My bud at one point tried to walk towards the fire, hand outstretched, saying, "Gotta turn the fire off." Like that's a thing you do barehanded. Like it was a heater he needed to turn the dial down and off to extinguish. I calmly reminded him that fire doesn't work like that, while gently but forcibly getting between him and the fire. He became paranoid of the fire despite his decades of camping experience. So at his request, I poured almost all the water on the fire. So my bud's in his tent sleeping off a bad case of mushrooms, not mixing well with bacon, egg, and sausage for lunch. Poor guy. Anyway, I'm chilling by the last embers of the fire, away from the tents about 15 feet, soaking up a bit of warmth into my hands and enjoying the atmosphere. And all of a sudden, behind me to the left, there's an almighty crack slash smack slash explosion about 25 to 30 feet away off to the left behind me in the trees. Less than half a second later, there's another of the sounds, though the location is now about 10 feet closer to me. Then again, just as quick and closer again still. Then the sounds begin to move away from me, like the whole thing happened in an arc around the fire. From 30 feet back to the left, all the way over the back right, bang, 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 bang. It was the single most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. No tree knock anywhere online even comes close. The other utterly baffling aspect is that there was no other noise. I swear not one leaf got stepped on, not one twig snapped. I couldn't even hear bark falling from the trees. With the noise from these trees and the powerful force involved, bark and even actual wood should have been flying. There was nothing except these unbelievable sounds and silence. There was no wind that night. The noise after the event, no noise after the event, no sign of life except my own. This is literally impossible to recreate as far as I can figure. People would have made noise, even highly trained ones. In that thick brush with dried leaves on the ground several inches thick and no trail to move along in the dark. Still makes no sense, even with all the research I've conducted on these matters. So, I'm essentially alone. My bud is down and out, and we're more than a mile from anyone in pitch black. I have no fire, no stick, a tiny knife in my tent, and several long strides to the tent with my back to the woods where the noisemakers are. It couldn't have been one entity, not covering 60-odd feet in roughly 3 seconds through very thick woods completely soundlessly, except making the most intense and rapid wood knocks that I've ever heard. I was reminded of how orangutans can tap the knuckles on glass at the zoo and make a noise infinitely deeper than we can with ours. They're just built different. The level of power conveyed in these noises spoke volumes, and I honestly needed no encore. I tried to move calmly to my bud's tent and said to him, "We're not alone out here." Kind of felt ridiculous saying it out loud, but it was the only words I could find to say. I knew he would be no good to me unless I started screaming bloody murder, and even then I would have bet on him. I'm sorry to say. I wouldn't have bet on him, I'm sorry to say. I was hopelessly outgunned, outmanned, and outclassed, and in their backyard for the night, utterly at their mercy. I could have been disappeared that night, and no one would have ever known. Laying in my tent with a small blade waiting for a hand to reach out wasn't pleasant. Saying that, a thought entered my mind as I lay there. Are you familiar with the work of Lloyd Pye? His speech entitled, "Everything You Know Is Wrong," is on YouTube and should be watched, I feel. And I feel too. In this talk, he speaks of how the Sumerians wrote about the Anunnaki, who took primitive man and added their DNA to make us a slave race. Well, I found myself thinking how horrible it would have been for the surviving Sasquatch-like beings, having their friends and family abducted and altered into a smaller, weaker being who takes to hunting you in packs out of fear for their lives, driving you to last remaining places where modern man doesn't dwell. It must have been rough for them to have their culture divided like that. Personally, I think these guys were onto something. Rest in peace, Lloyd. You'll be greatly missed. I found a sheep's skull placed perfectly on a mound of moss next to a swamp about a mile off the trail in the woods behind my home. We have no animals except rare and elusive big cats that could take down a sheep. Though, to remove the front section of the snout completely in a tearing motion without leaving any obvious marks and be placed upright after. What's odd is how there were no other bones around the skull whatsoever. For 2 years I visited and searched for other bones while never touching the skull, as it seemed like a trophy not to be disturbed. My working theory is that the skull belonged to a local farmer's prized sheep, taken as a display of skill and prowess. One day I visited with my bud, who was there camping the night of the wood knocks. All he remembers of the night was hearing a storm. And there was no wind, rain, or thunder that night, but he remembers hearing a storm. Anyway, we turned up to the skull site to check, and the skull had been kicked over, and a vertebrae that had appeared next to it. It looks to be from deer or sheep that was so clean and bright in the bone. No way did I miss that for 2 years. Can send photos of the skull and vertebrae if you like, taken over 2 years of visits. Can't see any signs of tooth marks on the bones, but I'm not an expert, unlike some of your listeners, I'm sure. This is definitely a global thing. If portals and UFOs are involved with the big guys after all, then the question is, what's not possible? We'll keep you updated if there are any developments. These are very interesting times for everyone all over the world. Big revelations are on the way, I reckon, and we're in for one hell of a ride. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your time with us all. You're a legend, bro. Peace and love to y'all. Thanks again, Kay. All right, man. Appreciate your email. It was written very well, by the way. I'm just a little rusty. A little rusty because I've been living like a frickin' half wolf, half Sasquatch, half third of each and third of human the past month, solo. Although the last few days, a few friends came up from south here to hunt, and they're still up there running around, 3 of them. I did manage to hunt with them a day and a half. But anyway, yeah, boy, what to say. You know, a lot of people are saying there's big reveals coming. There's going to be big reveals of things that are going to blow the human race's minds away in the next while. Is that true? I don't know. I do know, we know one thing that will always ring in my mind is what rang through another man's mind. He passed on to me, which was the government saying flat out, government lawyer saying flat out that the government does not care about anything except for control of the labor to appease the entity. And that sentence plagued him through his careers, and that sentence still plagues me today of wondering what the F's going on. There are blatant examples of much wrong going on in the world today, and I know some of you simpletons are going to go, oh my God, he's going to talk about politics again. That's not the case. It's our lives. It's our lives, our reality, what's going on. And there is a lot, that's a goat, by the way, standing in the door of the shop staring at me this whole time. But anyway, there's a lot going on that's not right. And there's a lot of us who try to encourage people to look for themselves into not one but numerous topics. You have to look into things yourself. You have to care, first off. And again, another thing too is, unfortunately, the way we're geared up is it takes time for us to care. A lot of time. It just does. It takes extra time for us to care as individuals about what's going on around us with various topics. And it's sad. It's sad because we've been programmed, we've been controlled, we've been put in debt, and we have been convinced that we need to work our asses off. And that's all we do. And it's creating stress and no time. And it also inhibits people from having time to think and act, right? Anyways, I could babble on forever because I have been away on my own in the real world for a few weeks, and that gives you a lot of time to ground yourself, be connected with the natural world, and to think freely. I've been away from the internet, and I've been away from any outside sources to make me angry with various topics that get thrown at me nonstop when I'm here. And right now I feel very, very grounded out. I feel very clear in the mind. And oh, here comes my pup. Puppy! Pup, come on! And I got a lot to do. I got a lot to share. And I have a lot of encouragement to pass along. The stairs are over there. Get up the stairs. Get up the stairs. That dog is so cute, it's stupid. Here she comes. Come here. Come on over. You want to say goodbye to everybody? All right, come here. Come here, you little furry bear. Here comes the girl. There she is, saying goodbye to everybody. See you later on. Hey, I'm sure you'll be here a bunch more, right? Anyway, that's it for now. I got lots on the go, but I got a lot to share, and I'll be back shortly with a shit load. All right, let's go. Let's go get this crazy train running.
See what the hell we're doing. Slide right up. It's not the one we called up, is it?
That'd take a while.
And this is how you come down.